Thank you, my fellow Toastmasters, visiting dignitaries, honored guests. The year is 1971. The man who's called king at the moment is recently married to his wife Tabitha, and he is an English professor. Makes about $6,400 a year. That's right, $6,400. It's more money back then, but certainly not anywhere near what you'd like to be making. And he has one dream: to write the great American novel. In his pursuits of doing so, he did a little bit of drawing from other sources and some of the influences in his life, and in the end, he wrote a book called Blaze, a book loosely based on the ideals that were put in the John Steinbeck classic of Mice and Men, about a man who is mentally handicapped and also a con artist, and he kidnaps a baby. It's a very good crime drama. And he sent it out diligently out to all the publishers, and all the publishers sent it back going, boring, try again. We're not going to publish this. So he writes another book. Sure enough, some of us would have quit. I know, if I spent time to write a book, and it got turned down, it'd be a hard thing to go write another one. But my friend, the king, decides to go out and write another one. And sure enough, he writes one called Second Coming. And this one is loosely based on the ideals put out by the classic Bram Stoker's Dracula. It's about vampires in a small town. And they get it and they go, nope, stop bothering us. We don't want anything to do with you. You can't write. Not interested. Things are hard. Steve turns to drinking. Things can be tough when you're not making a lot of money. And some of us would go, you know what? I'm never going to write the great American novel. Stephen didn't do that. Stephen got up and he wrote another book. His third book, The Running Man, was interesting because it's about a man who can't provide for his family. So he takes a great risk and he goes and joins a game show where he is very, very likely to die in order to get the grand prize that would give him the money to provide for his family. Sort of autobiographical in a strange way, and he put it out to the publishers out there, and again, we're not interested, we're not going to publish this. Third time's a charm, you think, and after the third time you think you'd learned your lesson, so, maybe a little more drinking, go back to work, and move on. The great American novel was not in him. Well, no, not Steve. Stephen finally wrote a book that was commercially successful called Carrie. And you may have heard of Stephen. Of course, this is Stephen King, possibly the most important writer of the 20th century of fiction works. He's written 54 novels as of now, several short stories, and is a major influence on film. It's also a major influence on film. The really odd thing about it all is that most people would take Stephen King's success and they'd be very happy with it. He even joked later on that he could probably publish his laundry list just based on his name. And it's true. So what did Mr. King do? He did a brilliant thing. He decided he didn't want to just be known by his name. Some of us would be happy. I'm commercially successful, people know who I am, and that's great. No, he wanted to know that people really appreciated his work for his work. So he decided to become someone else. Stephen King came up with a pen named Richard Bachman in the 1970s, and he released a book called The Running Man under Richard Bachman, and it was commercially successful. He also released one called Blaze in 2007 under the name Richard Bachman. Afterwards, his name had already been, the pseudonym had long since died a horrible death of copyright laws. They looked at the Copyright Office. Richard Bachman, Stephen King, death of the pseudonym. But he still used it many years later going, these books weren't good enough to be published when nobody knew my name. Now that I know my name, people read them and enjoy them. And he went out and he made himself commercially successful, again, under a completely different name. Exceptionally inspiring for someone like myself. I've sat down to write the great American novel, and it's not the easiest thing in the world. Sometimes I get as far as, the 30th chapter, and I'm just no idea what I want to do with it next. So it can be tough. I have those times in my life where I want to sit on my hands and, it's just not going to happen. I'm too busy doing this, that, and the other. I've got to work on work, I've got to work on school, I've got to work on family, I've got a child to raise, I've got a wife to take care of, and all these things that were getting in my way, allegedly. Instead, what I do when I'm sitting there and I've got this worst writer's block you could ever imagine, and I'm sure that nobody's ever going to like me, and if they do, it's going to be in post. I can't think of the word. Post my death. Posthumously. There you go. Humorously. Yeah, posthumously. Humorously. Nice, funny. Posthumously. And that's my huge worry. But then I think, Stephen King, one of the authors I've known my entire life. One of my earliest memories, God help me, is Jack Nicholson busting through a door with an axe and going, "Here's Johnny." We all know those moments. We all know the brilliance that is that author and his story. More than the stories that come out of it even, is more entertaining and inspiring than anything else I could have come up with. So next time you're finding yourself going, "I'm never going to be able to do the things I want to do. I've been rejected so many times." Rejection's just one more step toward the right direction. Stick with it. Stick with your goals. Stick with your dreams. And someday you too may be the #1 author, the #1 singer, the #1 used car salesman in Vista, whatever you may be doing. It doesn't matter. You don't have to want to be famous. You just want to have to be successful. And by God, if you try, if you do your best, if you never give up, you will always be successful. Thank you very much.